Have you mastered the art of disempowering yourself? And you might be thinking, why on earth would I ever want to do that? Well, guess what? We do it to ourselves more times than we even realize. We are going to dive into the question, are you disempowering yourself, in this week's episode, episode 27 on Reinventing Thyself podcast. Stay tuned. We all have situations, experiences, and moments in our life when we know deep at our core we have to do something different. We have to pivot. And regardless of how big or small that pivot is, it requires us to change something in our life. And that change can feel really uncomfortable. However, it is that change that is creating something entirely new. And it is that newness that creates a very different way of life in one area or multiple areas of our life. What's this all about? It is all about reinventing thyself. My name is Michelle Shutter, and I'd like to welcome you to Reinventing Thyself. I am so glad that you joined me today, because it is here that we'll move beyond our old self, our old identity, and that trailer of garbage from the past that we like to pull into the future, but really need to ditch that hitch. It is here that we'll move into that place of reinvention and embracing the newness of it all. Are you ready to step into reinventing thyself? Because guess what? It is never too late, and your time is now. Let's get started. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode 27 of the Reinventing Thyself podcast. Today we're going to dive into this question. Are you disempowering yourself? And you might think, oh, no way, not doing that. I am going to stay in empowerment. Well, kudos to you. And at the same time, you're going to want to listen, because we disempower ourselves more than we realize. And I'm going to give you 3 different examples of how we do that in this week's episode. So I don't imagine it's going to be a super long episode, but it's going to be filled with different points and nuggets for you to reflect back on. And I hope through this, my intention through these series of podcasts is really for you to think about when you're up against a change of some point in your life, whatever that may be. It can be something big, something small. Just know that you're entering a gap, and that gap is the space between where you are and where you want to go. And it's important that we lean into that space, that lean into that pivot, because within that gap, it's all about embracing the change. There's so many life lessons to be learned through that space. And at the same time, we can move boldly through it, and not only through the new beginning, but beyond it. And that is such a beautiful space to really find and access your greatness at a whole new level. And so this episode is really about supporting your greatness, because if we are disempowering ourselves from an unconscious, unintentional level, we definitely want to create some awareness around that and get that in check, because we want our greatness to be able to expand and evolve at the minute we get to the end of the gap, right? We're going to create a new gap. So why not really maximize our greatness on so many levels? So when I ask that question, are you disempowering yourself? Why would I ever want to do that? Well, of course, we intentionally don't want to disempower ourselves. However, it happens more times than we know. And we do this. It happens to everybody. So just know that it's not exclusive to you, especially when you enter the gap. Disempowering yourself, though, is your responsibility to create awareness around it so that you can make a new choice that serves you so much greater at a bigger level. This happens as I mentioned, like in times when we're transitioning, or we're just moving through a gap, or something out of the ordinary popped up, right? And so it's super easy to disempower ourselves. Now, I love to talk about energy because energy really is the basis of everything. So when we talk about energy, energy is everything, okay? Everything physical, everything non-physical. If you break anything down to the smallest, tiniest little particle, the energy is like it's energy, okay? Now, the one thing we have to realize is that we can lead our energy by choice or we can lead our energy by default. The majority of people, unfortunately, lead their energy by default. Now, when we're disempowering ourselves, we actually slip back into that default mode. So it's really important, again, to create some awareness around that. Now, let me share with you just two different types of energy. One energy is catabolic energy. One energy is anabolic energy. Now, catabolic energy is all about energy that really tears us down, energy that is destructive. It creates a lot of resistance for us. Energy that really has that language of, I should do that. I'll try to do that. Maybe. Oh, I need to do that. And it isn't this strong energy that really supports us in moving forward and through the gap in what we want. This energy is almost like you're not committing to anything. Now, keep in mind, there's no judgment around the energy. It just is. It's neither good nor bad. It just is. There's also, though, some anabolic energy. And anabolic energy is grounded. It is powerful. It's healthy. And anabolic energy also holds the language of, I choose to do this. I will do this. This is important to me. Yes, I will do this. No, I will not do this. So you're very certain in your language when you are in anabolic energy versus catabolic energy, where there's a lot of uncertainty. Anabolic energy is also constructive. Anabolic energy is expanding, it is fueling. And so what you want to realize is, what are those times when we are in the gap? When we're in the gap, are we utilizing catabolic energy or are we using anabolic energy? Because based on what I just shared with you, one of them is going to disempower you. The other one is going to empower you. Now, let me share with you just 3 examples. And the examples are super common, right? Again, they happen to everybody. It's not exclusive to you. Let me share with you 3 examples on how we disempower ourselves. One of the quickest ways to do that is really to accept the opinion of others as our truth. So let me give you an example here. Like you are starting something new, right? We always can use health because that's such a important aspect of our lives, right? We let's say we want to exercise, 5 days a week. Okay, that's our new goal. We're entering the gap, and we're not exercising right now, so that's where we're starting. The end result of the gap is that we want to be exercising 5 days a week. Well, we go and share that with somebody, and somebody that, we respect, we admire, we love. And in that space, we share with them, oh, I'm really excited. I'm starting this new fitness program. My goal, and I'm going to get it. It's going to be, I'm going to work out 5 days a week. To only have this person turn around and say, what are you talking about? Like, you have never finished a workout plan before. You always get to this point and drop off. And all of this, the language and the words that he used, all of a sudden starts to bubble up all that past garbage that you have, right? Those past beliefs, those past stories. And so we use what that opinion of that person as truth, because now we're trying to validate it with all of our old garbage. So if we want a quick way to disempower ourselves, it's really taking on the opinion of others as truth. And you probably can even hear that conversation in your head right now, right? So we have, oh, he's right or she's right. I never really ever finish anything. I don't even know why I'm trying again. Like, I do this over and over and over again. So it's that pattern that is repeating for you that is showing this disempowerment coming through. Another example is that, and this actually connects to the first example, is that we give so much power to our thoughts of fear and shame and worry and doubt and guilt. And so when we are in that vibrational energy of fear and doubt and worry and like just not deserving of something, how can we get to the end of our result that doesn't hold that energy? It's nearly impossible. It's not a match. So again, if we are taking on that opinion of others as truth and we're fueling that truth with all of our past garbage that has fear and doubt and worry in it, it's no wonder why we are disempowering ourselves. So we really want to create some awareness around that as well. And just the third example that I have for you is a quick way that we disempower ourselves. And again, I have done the first one. I've listened to the opinion of others and I've taken that as truth. I have allowed my lower vibrational energies, such as fear and guilt and doubt and worry, to have way too much power over my thoughts. And the third thing here is the third example, which I have also experienced, is really not putting yourself as the priority. And I talk about this in my webinar a lot too, about setting up and honoring non-negotiables. And I also referenced that in episode 26. So if you missed episode 26, you're going to want to check that out. But honoring non-negotiables and really making yourself a priority is something that brings that empowerment and really layers it over the disempowerment to the point where you can fully cover it, and it's almost like it's extinct, like almost like the disempowerment is extinct. And so when you put yourself as a priority, you're really stepping into that space of anabolic energy. And that anabolic energy is the empowering energy that we truly want to tap into on a regular basis. And so you might think, oh my gosh, like, okay, yeah, I've done all of this. Like, how do I not fall back into that trap again? Well, it is really all about creating awareness around our thoughts, because here's just a simple GPS through the gap, a simple formula that you can navigate. It's keeping in mind that our thoughts create our feelings, which drive our actions and produce results. So when we're moving through that gap and we feel that space, that energy of disempowerment trying to sneak in, it's really a point where we need to hit that stop button and think, oh my gosh, what are my thoughts here? What am I thinking? Or if all of a sudden we have this weird feeling about us, or this heaviness, like I experienced this a couple days ago, right? Like I had such a heaviness to me. I had to back up and think about, okay, what are my thoughts that are creating these feelings? So again, thoughts create feelings, which drive your actions and then produce your results. So when we can get into a space and we can catch our thoughts and evaluate those beliefs and those thoughts, we no longer are attached to all that garbage that likes to surface to the top. Does it still continue to come up? Absolutely. But not nearly as much as when we are always in the space of catabolic energy and disempowering ourselves. And again, we might not even know that it's happening. It may be totally unintentional. But the challenge is when we're so close to it, because it is us, it's challenging to observe that and then create some accountability for ourselves. So keep that in mind as you are going through this process and really asking yourself am I disempowering myself? Now, once you evaluate some of your thoughts and beliefs around this, a really powerful question to ask yourself is, How long are you willing to hold on to that belief? Right? So if you took on the opinion of others as truth and you made that your truth, and that thought is, I can never finish a workout, right? I'll never be able to exercise 5 days a week. Or that whole self-doubt again, right? Like that's that self-doubt coming in through what I just shared with you. If we don't evaluate that and then begin to ask ourselves, how long are we willing to hold on to that belief? We're going to be on the hamster wheel, essentially. We're going to keep running and doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result. So keep in mind that you want to ask yourself the question, how long am I willing to hold on to that thought? And if you're like in the space of what's wrong with this thought, or why do you want to hold on to it? What feels comfortable to you about holding on to a disempowering thought? That's a great space to dive into and become very familiar with. Many times all of this, the disempowerment feels more familiar to us than the empowerment. So we really want to look at challenging that, like, why does it feel so familiar? Right? So my question again for you is, are you disempowering yourself? And are you allowing this to happen through the 3 examples that I shared with you? Possibly. Keep in mind that you want to be super aware of the different energy you are utilizing as well. The catabolic energy and the anabolic energy. And with all of this, I dive into this so much deeper in my webinar, in my masterclass. And you can have access to that by registering at greatnessinthegap.com. One other thing I thought about too is sometimes we journal about this, and sometimes we, have some questions, or something isn't making a whole lot of sense, and we don't exactly know where to go with our thoughts, or how to evaluate our thought in a way. And so what I invite you to do is, if that is you and you have something that you want some additional support or coaching around, I invite you just to drop that into our Facebook group, where you can have some additional coaching and really get a different understanding on why you do what you do, right? Like, why am I disempowering myself? As I mentioned before, sometimes we are just way too close to it to really think about looking at it in a different way. So if that is something that interests you, I will put the link in the notes, but also know that you can find that on facebook.com/groups/greatness in the gap. Now, again, as I mentioned, I dive so much deeper into this in my webinar, the masterclass, whatever you want to call it. And not only do we dive into this whole space of the different energy that is really disempowering us, but we also get into some of the sneaky things that happen when we're in the gap. We get into the pitfalls that happen when we're in the gap, how we can really access and find our greatness at a whole new level, and not only sustain it, but expand it in a way that just serves us greatly. If that is something you want more information on, and you're really looking to up-level your greatness, upgrade it in some way, I invite you to the next webinar, and you can find that on greatnessinthegap.com. You can select your date and your time, and you'll be ready to roll. So with that today, my hope for you is that as you move through the gap, you begin to reinvent thyself. That's what it's about. It's about finding your greatness. It's about moving boldly through that gap, and not only this new beginning, but also beyond. And the only way we can do that is to fully lean into the pivot, embrace the change, and know that whatever lessons are supposed to come up in this space are lessons that are meant for our upgrade, the upgrade to our greatness. Until next time. Well, what are you waiting for? Whether you've pivoted and are unsure, or you're on the verge of pivoting, there is no better time than now for you to begin. Want to know why? Because if it wasn't the right time, the pivot wouldn't have shown up. And to get you started, I've got 3 shortcuts to reinventing thyself. Just head on over to www.reinventingthyself.com and you can download it there. And don't forget to message me with the shortcut that resonates with you the most. One last thing. I know you and I are not the only ones that have leaned into the pivot. Be sure to share this with others so they can be supported too. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for supporting me and sharing this message. Until next time.